understand everything there, but looking at the first three rectangles, healthcare, we're looking at three different topics. The first one is diagnosis, the second one is pharmacology, the third one is it's a huge area. So we're going on the subsection. Likewise, the financial technologists forget about the what on the right hand side. So how do bank how can bank really utilize AI? If you look at this planning, production, operation, procurement, and so on. So all the platforms that we see now can be solved. Likewise, in agriculture, each area multitude of papers, harvesting or soil management. We talk about that we have the sustainability policy. And across nations, you will find different approaches to adopting AI. So now, since I'm an engineer by background, I have policy. So my focus is on policy because I think a lot of technical issues I don't have to talk. So because policy making is a rigorous process. So there's not there's no way everything we talk about today is going to work. That's really important. It's not the problem for the problem. If you go across work, you'll see that there are people who understand economics, but they don't understand. There are people who understand technology, but they don't understand. So this public policy making is an integrated process. It's intertwined with different subjects. You really need to understand. In terms of policy challenges with respect to AI, I have this is my working paper. Yes, it's not finished. I'm working on this. Probably by sometime I'll have to sign a paper. But if you look at all these things that a lot of people talk about here, justice and equity, is it easier system, transparent? These things, privacy, another important matter, safety, if it falls down, who's usually first? Do you know, like, I think in Mountain area now they are transferring things. Yeah. So, if that falls on someone, are there any acts which will say that, okay, the person who is flying the company which is using the phone, who is responsible? Can we have some kind of certification? We do Microsoft certification, all these different things. These things are also important. When we talk about ethics, is it morally right to share data? Can a doctor share data? Can a civil servant give the data and somebody to a contractor? And there are a lot of ethical issues and we have to really take care of. These are like minor things that we always talk about. However, there are other things that we have to communicate with the town. There are systemic issues. For example, basic and applied research. This is really important. Like, I studied in Germany, I studied in the United States. You can see, like, how does the government invest in basic research? If you think about the internet, it came out by the government lab. If you think about all this high-tech stuff, think about the bunker buster that the US recently used on Iran. They have been working on this for the last 50 years. Now they're really interested in all these kind of things that are interesting to us. Scrum works about Lockheed Martin's one special department that designed Blackbird. If you're familiar with Blackbird, it was a plane that would fly 70,000 people around. During the Cold War, the Russians, the USSR, shot down one of them. But I mean, it's really how research works. But these were funded by the government. you're familiar with wide frequency hopping, these things came out of government lab. Think about how much investment the government put in validation on basic research. This is really an important policy issue. Apart from that, the applied research, big companies, private companies. So, how many private companies are really interested in applied research? The next thing is human capital, workforce displacement. The workforce displacement part, there's nothing we can do about it. During the Industrial Revolution, there were a lot of people that smashed steam engine. They were all died. So today, like people do jobs, they don't do those things, but still, like they can lose the first part, human capital. How good are we about teaching AI? What kind of facilities are there? Do we have any kind of training programs in Nepal so that people can really trust their skills? These things are human capital is too strong. But still, like just focusing on AI is really important. Then the institutions. So we talk about policies, we talk about legal framework, we talk about infrastructure. These are like institutions that need to provide smaller parts of the bigger picture. So what is public policy analysis? So what does the government do? Why it does it? And what is the result? So basically when we go to public policy school, this is something we what the government is doing, and as long as you do not understand all those things, it really doesn't matter. Because, like I said before, with my SOFA example, people do not understand everything, especially technical topics. Okay? So as long as you are not going to use basic facts, there's no use of studying these things. Now the next thing is, how do we analyze public policy? There's a basically, if you put them on the one is descriptive, like what has happened. Probably there's a big fish pond, fishery, it worked out, maybe it did, and prescriptive. You tell something to the policymakers and say, okay, see, these are the things that we really need. For example, social welfare. Okay. Now, there are different ways to analyze public policy. The Eightfold Path is really important. There's a whole book on this. The 5E approach, different ways to do these things. Okay? One of the important things when it comes to policy is policy making. It's like, so let's say the Prime Minister goes out and says, okay, we need AI, it will be wasting AI. That's the right time to smash the window and get out and say, okay, now is the time to do it. You said that. Local representative, where it's parliamentary, it doesn't really matter, but they have to be really smart because if
Hi Samrat. No, it's happening in Nepal.
like they have the iron, something like that. So, something like, do we need to provide AI to everyone? But it's possible. So who is going to do that? So in this case, we can say that either I am going to address this issue so that everyone has access to AI, or it's all about efficiency. They have limited resources, or use it. The rest won't use it. So what should the government do? It's more like that. Now we have a national policy, and these are the 7 points. So these are the 7 points under the rubric of policy. It's 740 something in the framework. Yeah. So whatever I said earlier, legal and government of Nepal has recognized this. The infrastructure and data management project we call it data is very important. Research innovation, I talked about it. Human resources of the policy talks about, this is about. Yes, I told you what you need that. Slightly different thing, but still. Then sectoral development, infrastructure, the legal infrastructure, anything. Public sector services, improving productivity. Now, collaboration talks about this. It talks about regulation. Well, it doesn't look really bad. It's wonderful. The government is really serious when it comes to AI policy. First question, everybody will answer. Just an example, legal and policy environment. Let's look at a couple of policy frameworks. Telecommunications Act of ECPS. Broadband policy of 2071. ICT policy of 2017. Digital Nepal framework of 2017. Radio frequency assignment policy. National cybersecurity policy. Come on. We do not have 5G in Nepal. Other countries have already started adopting 5G. And where do you know? Literally, we are doing nothing. Look at the act. It's 2015. What year is this? What has happened since 2015? You know, this Radio Frequency Act, the policy, that there was this big corruption case. That's why they started. I have a friend who works in Belgium, and he also teaches in South Africa. He's written a paper on Nepal's corruption in the area of telecommunication. It's amazing. I met him in a huge conference in Washington, D.C. and we had a long chat about this. So we do not have that kind of environment which will really push AI and other things people talk about development, agriculture, everything. So my recommendation. So what we can do? Data protection law. This is really important. Okay? The next thing is ethical oversight, bias. There are hundreds of kinds of biases, and there are books. One book probably talks about 50 biases, and then we have to get the next one about 76 biases. How do you mitigate those funding? As long as the government is not going to fund basic research, don't expect like AI is going to especially in countries like the US. The government is funding a lot in military research. And from there comes all these technologies. I don't think, any one of you know how much the government invests in basic research. Probably it might be an interesting topic in discussion. So now the governance. I talked about the acts. One act and other policies. Oversight bodies. There's corruption in the area of telecom, and service case. Then transparency, stakeholders. Now, since we have nothing, practically we have nothing. Maybe there are some research, we have written papers. These are really unuseful work. Think about how much data we have. How much data does the government collect? Every year, collect gas and we talk about big data. probably after 5 minutes the power will be gone. Okay, so can we really afford that? So basically what I see is like we study different countries, travel around the world. And I see like, these people are really serious. Are we? It's not like one morning the minister wakes up and says, okay, it's really AI. This is the situation. Some of the references I had there. So this is my
बोरिंग पार्ट आहे बोरिंग पार्ट जान्ने मान्छे अन्त डेलिभर गर्न नजान्ने होइन
के गरेर बोल्नुपर्छ भन्ने थाहा छैन माइक
This book about coexisting with AI. So these are like really interesting. And if you have time, the first one, alignment problem, the first 2 chapters are really interesting. After that, it's boring, not really boring, but it's really technical stuff. These are like really serious. So once again, thanks a lot to the organizers.